Welcome to another episode of Hacking with SuperTokens. I'm Darko, and today we'll continue hacking stuff with our web components, but this time we'll integrate them inside a React project. Now we already have a React demo, which we built in the first episode. Check that out in a link. I'll leave a link somewhere around here. And we'll continue building on that, but we will build something a lot fancier this time around. We'll use React Router, we'll use client-side navigation, we'll do some fancy stuff with the routing, so stay tuned. So first off, let's have a look at the agenda for today. Now the first thing that we'll do is import our web components inside our React project. Basically, we'll have both of those screens rendered inside the project, in which afterwards we'll add a React Router to the project. And finally, we'll do a bit of refactoring. Now, this is a bit misleading because I wasn't able to find a better description because, we'll kind of refactor a bunch of stuff and we'll change the way that we register the web components to actually exist inside the DOM so that in turn they can be used by React or whatever else we choose. I mean, this time it's React. Next time we might try something else. We'll see. But either way, the idea is we need a way to pass the navigate function down to the web components. I mean, the React Router's navigate function down to the web components so that they won't resort to using the window.href mutation to change the URL of the window we're currently looking at. Now, the idea here is that we shouldn't really fight the stack we're working in because one could make an argument that manually routing stuff just by mutating the URL is sort of fighting the stack, even though it might work. I'm not sure whether it will work. We'll find out. But the idea is to sort of integrate this whole thing together with React Router. So let's dig in. I have a folder for each of our episodes on the repository, and this one is currently just a copy of this one. So we'll use the code from previous episode as a starting point. So what we had here was the following. We had a couple of components defined over here, which are dashboard, email, password, plus a wrapper component, which is in charge of styling the whole thing. And in the demos folder, we have an HTML demo and a React demo. Now, we won't really be dealing with the HTML demo, but whatever, let's keep it in there. Now, the first thing that we need to do here is the following. Basically, take what's inside our dist directory and move it inside demos, React demo, src, components, and override these two things over here. Now, once they get overwritten, we basically have the latest version of the web components we built last time. So, okay, maybe you know what? Let's have a look at how that looked like. So this is it. We have two things to discuss here. Now, the first thing is the authentication screen itself. It's just a bunch of components which look something like this. There's email password over here. And this is what gets sent to the screen. This is just some SolidJS code, which gets compiled down to web components. We have two input fields, which use these two signals like set email and set password. Plus, we have two event handlers. One of them is for signing up, and the other one is for signing in. We can probably simplify this somehow, but for now and for proof of concept, it's good enough. We're hacking here. We're not doing, stable product or whatever. So the final important piece here is that we're registering that custom element to the DOM via a helper function that solid element provides for us. Where was it? Yes, here it is. And we're doing a no shadow DOM so that we render the whole thing inside the regular or the light DOM. The reason for this is that it simplifies styling somewhat, plus a bunch of other reasons. One of the biggest reasons being that password managers don't exactly work that well with the shadow DOM. But we're not building a product, but still, I was researching a similar thing internally for SuperTokens, so, it only made sense to continue building on this principle. So this is how this looks like in practice. We have this login screen in which we can, log in something like this. And if I do my password correctly, we should see... Okay, that doesn't seem to exist. Okay, let's just sign up then. Whatever. Yeah, okay, so we've signed up. This is a test server, so accounts get deleted occasionally. You shouldn't use this in production, whatever. I already talked about that in the previous 2 episodes. Check them out for a more in-depth explanation about this thing. Now, when we click on session info, we get some info about the session. We can sign out. Let's try logging in again to see whether it actually works. Password. Sorry, password. No, it's not password. I'm just kidding. So, yes, we've logged in. So it works. So we have these 2 screens. Currently, inside our demo project, they live as separate static pages. One of them is this one. Like we have a regular index file which just imports the CMail password custom element that we saw already inside our src directory, the one that's being registered, this one. And the other thing that gets rendered on screen on the other route, which would be the dashboard route over here, lives inside this directory over here, which is the dashboard directory that lives in the root of the project. It also has an index file. And that, instead of just importing the CMail password element, custom element rather, it imports the c-dashboard custom element here. So what we want to do is transfer these 2 elements, basically CMail password and c-dashboard, inside the React demo over here. Now we already copied the thing, but before we continue with the hacking part of the story, we need to do 2 things. Because our server, which is running on port 3001, expects requests to come from port 3000, we need to change the vite config over here to support that. Now we are already doing that inside our Solid project from which we're compiling the web components. So yeah, here it is. We need this part over here, server, and defining a port from which we can just send requests to the auth server, and the auth server can authenticate us on the other side. So okay, we have that. Now what we need to do next is basically just build this thing. And I just remembered I already copied these, but sure, whatever, let's do it again. Now what we did was go to dist over here, copy these 2 files, go to demos, go to React demo, go to src components, and rewrite these 2 files. So okay, once we have that done, at least in theory, if we import one of those files, we should have access to those 2 custom elements. Now, again, TypeScript will complain. We can fix that either later in this episode or in a follow-up episode. We'll see how much time is left for that. So let's see, we're at app.tsx and we're already importing some things over here. These are just some remnants from last time. We'll just remove all of that. We want to keep the import is fine, but instead of importing c-hello, we would like to import c-email-password. And if we, let's just change the directory to demos and change this directory to React demo, and then do npm run dev, we should get a working React application at port 3000, which actually does a bunch of redirecting for no apparent reason. Let's find out why that happens. So, alright, as it turns out, it's a feature. So let's observe. It just gets redirected to the dashboard, then back to like the index. So let's see what actually happens in the background. It's actually a feature in the sense that it's how vite works. Now what that means is the following. Now, since our entry point in this project is only this file, there's this like index.html over here, which imports the scripting over here, and we're just returning CMail password here. It tries to redirect to a dashboard route. and we don't really have a dashboard route, do we? Of course we don't. And if we were to import the C dashboard component instead, and we have a working auth session already, or rather our session is already authenticated, we should see the dashboard on screen, but it's going to be on the index route or whatever. Why is that? Because we only have a single entry point, like the index file. It on one hand, the client-side application has no notion of routes currently. It has no idea what to do with when the URL changes. On the other hand, this component, if we change it to C email password, it's going to keep on trying to redirect to a dashboard route. So again, this looping weird thing. So okay, let's kill that again. And now let's just add React Router. So let's get started with adding React Router to Vite, and we'll do this verbatim as it's described on screen. So let's start with, is there a quick start here? There should be, feel like. There's a feature overview. No, we don't want to do that. Let's go with I'm new. Perfect. So, okay, cool, and it has a Vite starter, but we're not doing a template because like we already have this thing. So yes, let's start with npm install React Router DOM. So let's paste that. Lovely. We have that installed. Now, this is just for the tutorial. We don't really care about this one. Structure, I imagine we can jump this. This is what we need over here. Now we need a create browser router and we need a route provider. So like, yeah, let's copy these two guys and go to main.tsx. Let's put all of our providers over here. Okay, so React Router DOM. Yes, unused imports. Sure, I know. And the next thing we need to do is const router create browser router. Let's do that. And we'll have two paths over here. One of them is the slash, which we'll use for the auth screen, and the other one should be dashboard, which we'll use for, well, the dashboard. Surprising, I know. And then we do a React provider with a router over here. Amazing. So okay, we will just comment out app for now just to check whether this thing will work as we expect it to work. So npm run dev, let's go to localhost 3000. Yes, okay, we have a dashboard and we have a root route. Lovely. Now what we actually need here is, how should we handle this? Now inside here we have, maybe we just ditch this thing entirely. Let's try that to simplify this project even further. What we're gonna do is we'll just delete this from over here, paste the import here, which I'm not sure whether it's, yes, this should work. And the elements that are going to be returned in these paths are c-email password on one hand and c-dashboard on the other one. Dashboard, come on, man. Yeah, that the fact that we're missing like TypeScript support sort of comes to bite us because like the autocomplete doesn't really work properly now. Now what we can do here is let's just go ahead and delete these two files because we don't really need them anymore. Just delete. All right. And yeah, okay, so the build isn't complaining and it seems to be working fine. Let's see. Session info, sure, let's try signing out, see what happens. Okay, let's try logging in. Okay, that actually works. Perfect. Now, the problem here though is the following. The redirection that we're seeing is server side. Password 123 whatever. Okay, and sign in. we don't see anything over here, right? So in order to actually see what happens here, let's actually create that app thing once again. Like, just create this dummy component in which we'll log something. So log like app, whatever. I'm just doing this for illustrative purposes. And app will return, yes, exactly. Now, interesting. Smart Copilot is smart. Sometimes it's even right. So let's do an app. Why does it compare? Fast refresh only works when a file has exports. Move your components to a separate file. Sure, I'll move it later. Doesn't matter. So let's see. We have app logged in once, right? So let's just sign out. We have app logged in again. So let's try logging in. And if I sign in, I'll just see the entire console deleted and not see app again in the same console. This means that this redirect is happening on the server side. Now, we don't want that because we have a React router. Now, this will work. This works fine. Sure, it achieves the purpose, but is a hacky way of achieving the purpose we had set. Like, basically integrate with the router and have the router's navigation work together with our web components. Now, in order to achieve that, we'll have to like sort of change the way we register web components and devise a way of passing the navigate function down to our components. So let's get started by first killing our dev server over here and returning back to Solidland. That would be, yes, over here in this directory, but we won't really do much over here. Let's just close everything down. We'll be back to the demo a bit later. The first thing that we want to do here is basically change the way by which we are exporting the components. All right, so instead of just registering these custom elements over here, we want to export a register function. Why do we want to export a register function? Now, there are multiple ways of passing down functions and methods and stuff to web components, but we don't get to have the same developer experience we are used to using like JSX stuff. For example, when in web component land, stuff like this is just not going to work. Let's say that we want to have an onNavigate function over here. And let's say that we want this one to be like window.href equals /. And this is not going to work because like HTML can't really run functions like this. It can't really parse this thing. The thing that it can actually do is just strings. So if we pass something like, let's say, onNavigate instead, and say, let's say we have a global function called navigate, this would work in the sense that we can try doing something like reading this property on the other side, like inside, let's say, our React application, and parsing it and expecting such a function to exist in the global scope. That's a bit dirty though, right? It's not exactly a nice developer experience. But what we can do instead, and this is probably one of the, it's not the only method certainly, but I prefer this one for demo purposes. What we can do here is, instead of just exposing the custom element over here as it is, we could do the following. Export, let's say function, let's call it register email password. And allow a function over here as a prop. Let's say navigate equals a function that just returns void. And as a part of that function, we can actually register this element. So what this achieves is we are sort of creating a wrapper function, higher order function that returns a register function. No, it's not really a higher order function, just a function that wraps another thing that runs and register something to the DOM, but it allows us to pass it a navigate function. Now, what we can do over here is do this, like add the navigate prop to this one and pass the navigate function down to it. We can also register the function up here via the props, or not up there, but rather here, and say like props. And then we can do navigate, and add void. So the rest of it should remain the same, but what we're after here is replacing all of the window location href calls with navigate calls, something that should represent or should stand in place of our custom navigate function. So we comment this one out and say props.navigate and pass a path to it. All right, we forgot the path prop. There's something that's supposed to be passed so that it knows where to navigate. So we should redefine this one to path string, because our path is always a string. At least it should be. So it's not assignable to, all right, we need to change the definition for this thing as well. Say path string. Now we need to do a similar thing for our dashboard, because our dashboard is also doing the navigating. Oh, right, before I forget, this is not the only place we're using navigate. We should be using navigate in these two as well, meaning that we should do something about those two. So what we can do here might be a bit quick and dirty, but doesn't matter. We're doing proof of concepts. So let's say navigate, yes. Yeah, cool. Smart Copilot is smart. So we are looking to replace this. Instead of doing that directly, we can call navigate to dashboard, right? This means that if the sign up process passed successfully, instead of mutating location.href to dashboard, we are running navigate to the same route. Now we can do the same thing. We don't care about check email. It doesn't navigate anywhere. We just want to change sign in as well. Okay. So Copilot is being smart once more. All right. Yes, it's complaining about the types of those, but we'll get to that. So we have only one instance of navigation, which is this one, and we are replacing that with this. Okay. So we're done with that. And over here we have an email, we have a password, and we'll pass navigate down to it. Okay, navigate. All right. And so why doesn't it? All right, it's props.navigate, not just navigate. Okay, have that figured out, and we'll do the same over here. Right, and now we should in theory have a working thing, right? Probably. We can test this out. But first, let's do dashboard first and put it through the same treatment, like what we did over here with email password. Now, instead of just calling custom element, we are going to export a function called register dashboard. Now, of course, these two can be generalized. Let's say you can create a map with a bunch of custom elements that have their own like place in the map, but this is quick and simple. We like quick and simple, so why not? And we'll do the same thing with navigate. Let's go navigate, and navigate should take a path as an argument that's of type string. And I think we're done here, probably. Yeah, we should be. Let's go with navigate equals navigate, right? Of course, we don't have it defined in there. What we need to do is define the navigate prop. Yes. Copilot to the rescue once more. And what we need to do here, we have this call to window location href, and we'll do props.navigate, and We'll replace this one with browse.navigate as well. And we have a fully working thing right now. Now, the final thing that we actually need to do over here is this. We can like, I don't think we need to change these two, but the demo is probably going to break the HTML demo, or like if we do npm run dev over here, it's just not going to work anymore, right? Right. So yeah, basically nothing happens. We get an empty screen. Why? Well, because the way that this worked so far was it's calling the function directly over here. And like that's not how this should work at all. Like before this can work, we should actually call the register function, which we changed from just doing custom element, and we should call this somewhere. So in order for that to work, let's define another file. Let's call it like, I don't know, let's go with demo.ts. And in demo.ts, or rather, should it be ts or tsx? I don't know. Let's see. Like we can just import these two. Like the first one was register email password. This is what we want to do. And we want to like register email password, and the function that we want to pass to it is like window location href equals path. Yeah, why? Because like that's probably the most universal way to define a navigate function somewhere, right? I think so. And then we want to do the same for register dashboard, and window location href equals, okay, that's something. Href equals path, yes, and we close it. So that should already be it. And what we want to do, this would in turn register both of those things. And instead of calling main.tsx, we call demo.ts, which is in src. And this should give us a, oh no, it's redirecting to dashboard, right? And we're doing email password, and we already have an existing session. So we have to do the same thing for this file over here. Let's see. Yes, and it works. So let's see, we have a session. We can sign out of this guy. We can log in again. Yes, lovely. So, okay. What we managed to achieve over here is pass a custom function to the register function, a custom navigate function to the register function that helps us register custom elements to the DOM. That was a mouthful. But the idea is simple. Allow a custom navigation method for our authentication screens. That's all there is to it. So the next step here would be to, instead of just importing these two files via main, we want to import the actual register functions. That would be register dashboard, and the other one would be register email password from this one. And then we can just export default. Let's do, you know what, let's do an object. Like, let's export both, who cares? And once we build this thing, I mean, probably builds, let's find out whether it builds. Well, it does. That's great. And we need to once again copy these two files, or rather just the ES file, because that's the one we're importing. We don't really care about the other one. That would be in src components. Let's delete these two. We don't need them, and paste the new one over there. Now, next up, we need to, yeah, okay, we have this. We stopped it already, and let's go to demos. Let's go to React demo, and we'll run this in a bit, because we currently won't see anything on screen. Look, let's try that. You know what? Let's try that. See what? Yeah, okay, as expected. Like nothing happens on screen. That's it. no logic, nothing. Why? Because we aren't really calling those register functions in our demo at all. So we had them in main.tsx, and we need to import those two first. Now, from those two were called register. Now what? Yeah, because we don't really have TS support, we're gonna have to wing this one. They were called register email password and register dashboard. This is what we're after. Okay, same file, but these are the names of the functions. So yeah, it is going to complain. Yeah, okay, that's fine. But before we create the browser router, we need to basically do the following. So in order to make the thing work with the navigate function, we need to do two things. First, we need to get navigate via the useNavigate hook from React Router DOM, which is this guy over here, useNavigate. And the other thing is we need to register these two somewhere, but pass navigate hook or the result of using the navigate hook over to these two for that to work. But in order to make that work, we have to do a couple of things, because let me just show you real quick. Currently, we don't really have anything on screen. It's empty because we're not really registering the components anywhere. But if we, let's say, do this over here, const navigate equals useNavigate, it's going to complain. Why? Very simple, because we are not using it inside a router component. Instead, we're trying to use it in the wrapper component. Now, the thing is that in order for this thing to work properly, we need to actually redistribute this somehow to be able to pass the navigate function inside the register functions, but inside the router component. Now, an easy way to do that would be to, let's say, create some wrapper components that would just wrap our CMail password and CDashboard web components and pass navigate down to it. So that's probably the easiest thing to do over here, so I'll just do that. So let's say first we want to do dashboard, and let's define a function there that is going to use const navigate equals useNavigate, and it's going to call the register thing, which would be register dashboard with the navigate function, and it's going to return c-dashboard, right? This should already be enough. And the second one we need would be an identical one to this one, but it's going to register email password instead of dashboard, the thing that we defined when we created the web components registration functions. And instead of using the web components directly, we are going to use email password over here, and we are going to use dashboard over here. And in theory, that should all work fine, and we should be able to navigate via our... Okay, so something isn't working. Why? Does not provide an expert name register dashboard. So what does it provide? So let's see. Let's just try this. Let's try importing web components. And see what does it actually export for us, because I export the default thing and that might not work as we expected to work. Let's see. So all right, okay, so the destructuring doesn't work because probably it's a default, but sure, whatever, it doesn't really matter that much. We can call it like this instead. So we can do web components dot register and web components register email password, because I think that's what they were called. Let's see, maybe we're just doing something. One of them is register dashboard, yes, and the other one is register email password. So now we should be in theory fine, and we are. So okay, this means that if I do this right, I should see console log app just once over here. Probably. Let's see, did we remove the console log? No, let's remove that from over here and let's try logging in. So let's session info. Sure, it does session info, right? And yeah, SuperTokens already initials. We'll take care of this one in a bit. So let's try logging in. Password, but this does in fact look promising. Password 123. Let's do a sign in. Yes, we aren't seeing app again. This means that we are using client-side routing, which was our goal all along. But we are getting these warnings over here. Now, there's an interesting reason why they are happening, and that's because, let me just show you where we are initializing. So this is the SuperTokens init, right? Now we are going to be running this each time we are importing one of these functions. We have SuperTokens init over here in dashboard. We have a SuperTokens init in email password over here, and that means that that init function gets called multiple times, and we don't actually want that. But we need to be sure that it's initialized. So we can do something quick and dirty like, let's say this. So let's go inside the config file over here and let's have a flag. Let's say like initialized false, and let's if initialized return, or else like, yeah, I'm not sure. We don't really need the else over here, but it's going to like just initialize the thing otherwise. Now, instead of just rerunning this thing, we have to rebuild it because this is in the solid project, which compiles things for us. So let's do an npm run build over here to sort of silence that warning. And now we need to copy and paste the whole thing. Let's go to this. We were using the ES module for this. Go down to demos back, go to React, go to SRC components, replace the component completely. And then like go back to demos. Yes, go to React demo and then do an npm run dev, and now we shouldn't be seeing those warnings anymore. So if we do a session info, sure, it works fine. Then do a sign out. Okay, so it's not working. All right. Why isn't it working? So if it's initialized, return. Oh, right, we're not really setting this anywhere, of course. Yeah, silly me. Like, we want to set initialize to true. Yes, thank you very much, Copilot. Then again, npm run build. All right, we built the thing. And then again, that same boring dance. We'll fix this in a follow-up episode, don't worry. We certainly aren't going to be doing this all the time. So demos, React demo, SRC components, replace the thing, and hopefully we're not going to see the thing anymore. First off, let's change our directory to demos. Let's go to the React demo, npm run dev, npm run dev. Okay, we're not logged in. Yes, okay, we did log out, that's true. Let's try logging in. gmail.com, password 123. Sign in. Yes, no more warning. Lovely. Now we can sign out. Let's try signing in with something like user@example.com, and let's do a password -1 because like that's secure. Why not? Signed up. Perfect. Now, okay, this is interesting. Our component is logging the username and the password. How lovely. And sign out. All right. So, okay, let's recap a bit what we did this episode. Or let's check it out. Like, did we do everything we set out to do? We did add the web components to the React project on 2 separate routes. It worked fine, but it did a server-side thing, like when we added React Router to it, and we didn't want that. We wanted to have it route via the navigate function that React Router gives us. And we added a way to pass the actual function down to our web components. So yes, goals achieved. Now, how did we do that? First off, we changed the implementation of both dashboard and email password to sort of be a function instead of just running custom element that Solid Element provides us with. And of course, without using the shadow DOM for reasons that we explained at the beginning of this episode. We did the same thing with email password. We built the whole thing, and in the main file, we wrapped those in a default export, which in retrospect might not have been the smartest decision, but sure, we did something that we can fix next time. Why not? And following that, we just copied the built artifact from here, the ES module, over to the components directory over here. Then we imported that into main via this web components thing over here, and we registered both of those components via register dashboard and register email password, passing them the navigate function from useNavigate over here, using the useNavigate hook from React Router DOM, and then we are returning them via these components, which are sort of a wrapper component for the whole thing. Then pass them along down to router, and then finally show the whole thing on screen via React Router, and then finally show the whole thing on screen via React Router. Cool, right? Thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe so that we keep making these things and know that we're doing the right thing for, bringing some value and sharing the knowledge for web components, for what we do internally for SuperTokens and so on. Make sure to join us next time when we continue this experimentation with some slots, some custom components inside our components, and some various very interesting stuff like that. See you next time.